If you've ever felt like the black sheep in your family, not because you failed at anything, but because you succeeded without permission, then you'll understand where this is going. My name's Arthur, I'm 42, and if you met me 6 months ago, you'd probably think I had the perfect big brother role. The one who shows up, pays up, cleans up, and never makes a scene. I was the helper, the rock, until one day, the rock cracked. And what poured out wasn't just frustration. It was 3 years worth of silence, and a mortgage-sized secret that would break my entire family's illusion of control. I didn't come from money. My parents, Mark and Diane, were good people in theory, hardworking, proud, and religious enough to guilt you with a Bible quote at every holiday dinner. But we were never close in the emotional way. Affection was earned with sacrifice, and as the oldest of three, that was basically my birthright. My younger sister, Natalie, on the other hand, well, she was the Pinterest board come to life. The golden girl, 5 years younger, Instagram perfect, and somehow always the center of the family universe, even when she wasn't in the room. Natalie didn't just throw parties. She threw themes. Rustic chic, Parisian garden, minimalist farm-to-table, you name it. Meanwhile, I worked a demanding job in commercial finance, commuted 2 hours a day, and raised twin boys with my wife, Emily. We weren't flashy, but we showed up. Soccer games, piano recitals, school events. We were there, with granola bars in the car and sneakers in the trunk. Our boys, Owen and Caleb, are 10. And last month, they both received a district-wide award for academic achievement and community service, something only 2 kids per school receive. It was a big deal. They worked hard for it. And I was proud, really proud. We sent out invites to the ceremony weeks in advance. Nothing formal, just a group email. Me, Emily, our parents, and Natalie. We even offered to drive them. My mom responded with a simple, "We'll try to be there." Natalie didn't reply, but that wasn't unusual. She preferred texting hearts and thumbs-up emojis when she did acknowledge you. Still, I assumed they'd show. They'd never missed anything of Natalie's, after all. The night before the event, Emily and I were packing little thank you bags for the school staff when my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. "Sorry, honey. We won't make it tomorrow. Natalie's having us help set up for her dinner. She's going all out." You know how she gets. I just stared at the screen. I remember blinking a few times, waiting for the words to change. They didn't. I read it out loud to Emily, who froze with a tissue paper flower in one hand and a glue stick in the other. "She's throwing a dinner?" Emily said. "That's why they're skipping the boys' ceremony." I tried to brush it off. It's Natalie. Everything's always life or death with her events. But that night, I barely slept. I kept picturing my boys standing on that stage, scanning the crowd for their grandparents. For my sister, and not seeing them. No text. No good luck. Just silence. I thought back to all the times I'd shown up for Natalie. When she broke up with her fiancé 3 years ago and called me sobbing at 2 a.m., I drove an hour to pick her up from his condo. When she got laid off during COVID, I helped her get on her feet again. I even hired her for a short-term contract with one of our firm's clients, against my better judgment. But this wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. The ceremony came. The boys did great. They were glowing. And afterward, I took photos with them in front of the school banner, biting back every emotion I didn't want to ruin their moment with. That night, my mom finally sent a text. "Hope it went well. We're sure they were amazing. Natalie's dinner looked stunning, by the way. She's got such an eye for detail." I didn't respond. 3 days later, the real blow came. Natalie sent me a message, an actual message, not a meme, not a sticker. Just 10 words that changed everything. "Your kids get too much attention anyway. It's exhausting." I reread it 5 times, each one like a slap. She didn't mean it sarcastically. There was no LOL or just kidding. Just raw, entitled venom. Like it was a burden to even pretend to care about my kids. And maybe that's when the spell finally broke. Because suddenly, I remembered something very important, something no one else in the family had any clue about. For the past 3 years, I'd been quietly paying our parents' mortgage. After my dad got sick and their retirement savings took a hit, I stepped in. I didn't want them to lose the house. They were too proud to ask for help, so I made it easy. I set up a direct debit through my firm's real estate holdings division. They never saw my name on anything. They thought it was some anonymous program for senior homeowners. I kept it quiet because I believed it was the right thing to do, because I thought they cared. But after that message, After watching them skip my kid's milestone to string fairy lights for Natalie's fall harvest chic dinner party, I checked the calendar. Their mortgage renewal meeting with the bank was the next morning. And suddenly, I didn't feel so generous anymore. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, thinking about how much I had given. Not just money, but time, patience, grace. Thinking about how my boys had smiled anyway, how Emily had stayed calm, how I had kept swallowing the bitter pill over and over for the sake of keeping the family together. And then I thought about what it might look like when that fake stability cracked. The next morning, I made a call. By lunchtime, the bank had made its decision. And by dinner time, my entire family understood exactly what I'd stopped doing. The first call came at 8:12 a.m. the next morning. I was brushing my teeth when my phone rang from the bathroom counter. Mom flashed across the screen. I didn't pick up. A minute later, a voicemail came through. I let it sit for a bit, then played it back while getting dressed. Arthur, something's wrong with the mortgage account. Your father and I had our renewal meeting this morning and, well, I don't want to assume anything, but the bank said the last payment didn't go through. It's probably a mistake, right? I'm sure you'll handle it. Not thank you. Not, we appreciate all you've done. Just a quiet expectation wrapped in passive-aggressive concern. She never once acknowledged that for 3 years, they hadn't paid a cent toward their own home. It was as if the help had always just existed. Like gravity, like Wi-Fi, invisible and expected. I didn't respond. By 11 a.m., Natalie had jumped into the ring. I was mid-meeting at work when her texts came flooding in. Are you seriously sabotaging Mom and Dad's house over a stupid dinner party? You're acting like a jealous child. This isn't about you. It's about family. Something you clearly don't value unless you're the center of attention. I put my phone face down on the desk and tried to breathe through the meeting. But the words kept circling in my head like vultures. Jealous child. Center of attention. Family. Wasn't that rich coming from the person who planned a 4-hour dinner party with a handwritten menu, choreographed candle lighting, and 3 costume changes while my kids received one of the biggest honors of their academic lives? When I got home that night, I was tense. Emily noticed immediately. I filled her in, showed her the messages, and she just shook her head. They're panicking because you broke the illusion, she said gently. It's not about the mortgage. It's about control. Still, I felt torn. Guilty, even. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted them to care. About my kids. About us. About something beyond Natalie's aesthetic vision boards and their endless double standards. That weekend, we got the official letter from the bank. Since the account had no known owner of record due to the payment structure I'd arranged, and no one stepped up to assume the new terms, the house would go into reassessment for standard repayment. Translation, my parents would now need to pay their own mortgage. From scratch. At their age, with limited income and health issues, it would be rough. And I wasn't celebrating that. I wasn't rubbing my hands together, thrilled at their discomfort. I just let it happen. I let the system behave exactly how it would have if I had never intervened at all. And that, apparently, was unforgivable. The calls intensified over the next few days. At one point, my mom left a 7-minute voicemail crying about how some people abandon their family and live with no shame. My dad sent me a message, short and cold. I didn't raise you to turn your back on your own blood. And Natalie? She was on fire, posting cryptic Instagram stories about loyalty, fake brothers, and how success isn't about money. It's about character. Emily suggested we go low contact for a while. Let them cool off. So we did. We took the boys camping that weekend, just the 4 of us, and for the first time in a while, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. But peace doesn't last long in families like mine. Not when the golden child feels dethroned. Not when the financial plug is pulled and no one's ready to swim without a life vest. 2 weeks passed without a single word. Then came the invitation. Natalie was throwing a fall renewal celebration for her newly redecorated backyard. A catered event. Music. Fire pits. A.S. Moray's bar. And, get this, a live string quartet. On the invite, she wrote, "Family first. Let's put pettiness behind us." Emily laughed out loud reading it. She's inviting us to a healing party after publicly bashing you online? I didn't want to go. Every instinct screamed that this was a setup. But Emily, always the mediator, suggested we make an appearance, just long enough to show face. To demonstrate that we weren't afraid or ashamed. to protect our kids from future fallout by not cutting ties too abruptly. So we went. The house looked like a catalog spread. Fairy lights everywhere. Hand-pressed cider in mason jars. Coordinated plaid blankets draped on every chair. The whole thing screamed curated forgiveness. We arrived a little late, and as we walked into the backyard, the music dipped and conversations hushed slightly. Natalie greeted us with a hug so fake it should have come with a receipt. Arthur. Emily. Oh, it's so good to see you guys. I knew you'd come around. I forced a smile. Nice setup. Oh, thank you. I designed the whole thing myself. Took weeks. But it's worth it when family can come together, right? She emphasized family like she was quoting scripture. The boys ran off to explore the backyard. Emily got pulled into a conversation with a few cousins. I ended up cornered by my parents near the fireplace. My mom looked exhausted. My dad stone-faced. Arthur, my mom began. I don't understand what we did to make you so cold. I stayed quiet. We trusted you, she continued. We thought we raised a son who cared. You raised a son who stepped in when no one else would. I said. You just didn't ask how or why. You never once asked if I could afford it. You never thanked me. You just assumed. My dad crossed his arms. That's what family does. We show up. We sacrifice. Quietly. Exactly, I said, my voice low but steady. And that's what I've done. For years. But it's never been enough, has it? They didn't respond. And then, as if scripted by the universe, Natalie appeared, holding a glass of sparkling cider and a little too much smugness. Well, she said. The prodigal son speaks. I looked at her. You know what the worst part of all this is? It's not that you skipped my kid's ceremony. It's not the texts. It's not even the house. It's that you genuinely believe you've done nothing wrong. She rolled her eyes. I didn't ask for you to pay their mortgage, Arthur. If you wanted praise, you should have sent an invoice. That hit me like a gut punch. Emily, overhearing from a few feet away, stepped forward, but I raised a hand. I wanted Natalie to finish, to show everyone just how deep the entitlement ran. She took a sip of her drink and continued. You've always needed to be the hero, the savior. Maybe now that the money's gone, you're realizing that's all you had. I looked around. Cousins, uncles, aunts. Everyone was watching now. No one was stepping in. Natalie smiled like a wolf. We're not your charity case, Arthur. You're not better than us. And in that moment, something in me broke, not out of rage, but clarity. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I didn't need to explain the years of checks, of quiet help, of swallowed pride. I didn't need to defend my kids' right to be celebrated. I just needed to walk away. So I turned to Emily, nodded, and we called the boys. As we left, Natalie called out behind us. Run away, then. That's what cowards do. But I didn't turn around. Because I wasn't running. I was reclaiming something that had been stolen, piece by piece, over decades, my dignity. What I didn't know at the time, what none of them knew, was that Natalie had one more move up her sleeve. And it would be the one betrayal I never saw coming. After we left Natalie's backyard performance, things went quiet. But not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful or earned. It was the heavy kind, the silence after a slammed door, the pause before a storm. Emily and I didn't talk much on the ride home, mostly because we didn't need to. The air between us was already saturated with all the words we'd been choking back for years. I think we both knew the dam had finally broken, and what was left behind wasn't pretty. The family I'd bent over backwards to support, financially, emotionally, logistically, had not only turned on me, they were actively smearing me like I was the villain in a story they wrote overnight. I'll admit something here I'm not proud of. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel righteous. I felt hollow. That kind of hollowness where your chest feels like a vacuum, and your thoughts start echoing in the space where your confidence used to be. I couldn't focus at work. My clients noticed. I was late to 2 meetings in 1 week. The twins asked if Nana and Pop were mad at them. I told them no, that adults just get confused sometimes. But even that lie felt like a betrayal of the truth I was still trying to make sense of. Then, 3 days after the backyard ambush, Natalie posted something that shattered whatever illusion I had left about the situation. It was a photo, a polished, professional-looking shot of her standing in front of a house, my parents' house, with a sold sign in the yard and the caption, "New beginnings, helping mom and dad downsize so they can focus on what matters most, healing. Hashtag family first, hashtag gratitude, hashtag change is good." I stared at it for a full minute, unable to process what I was seeing. My heart thudded against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I zoomed in, scanned every inch of the photo. That was definitely their house. That was definitely a real estate sign. And those were definitely crocodile tears in the comments. You're such a good daughter. They're lucky to have you. Wish more people were like you. True family steps up when it counts. I couldn't breathe. I had to sit down. Emily came in from the kitchen, holding a coffee mug, and saw my face. What happened? I turned the phone toward her. She sold the house. She blinked. Wait. What? She must have convinced them to list it after the bank sent the renewal letter, I said, numb. And look at the comments. She's telling everyone she rescued them. Emily took the phone, reading through the comments like she couldn't believe her eyes. They're spinning it like you abandoned them. Like she's the savior now. I laughed. It wasn't funny. Not even a little. But I laughed anyway. Because it was absurd. It was theatrical. Natalie had rewritten the entire narrative and cast herself as the hero, the doting daughter who swooped in after her evil brother left the nest. That night, I finally broke. I went down to the garage, sat on an old folding chair, and just let it all out. Years of exhaustion. Years of being the one who stayed quiet. The one who paid the bills, fixed the fences, moved the furniture, filled the fridge. The one who took the hits because that's what family does. I sat in that garage for 2 hours, not even speaking, just thinking about how I had shaped my entire adult identity around a role no one even respected. The provider, the fixer, the invisible backbone. And for what? That's when Emily came down. She didn't say anything, just sat across from me and reached for my hand. You don't have to keep bleeding to prove you were the one who kept them alive, she said. Let them believe what they want. You don't need their applause to have peace. I didn't respond right away. I just squeezed her hand. Because maybe for the first time, I understood what she meant. The fall didn't happen all at once. It was a slow unraveling. Over the next month, I pulled back from everything. No more calls. No checking in. No birthday cards. No holiday planning. I didn't even respond when my mom left a long, guilt-laced voicemail about how hard it is to navigate life without unity. I stopped trying to fix things. I started fixing myself. It wasn't glamorous. I didn't suddenly rise from the ashes with six-pack abs and a motivational Instagram account. I still had work stress. The boys still bickered about Minecraft. Emily still had her moments of frustration. But something shifted. I started going to the gym. Nothing crazy, just 30 minutes a day. I stopped skipping lunch. I booked a weekend trip for the 4 of us, just because. I picked up the guitar again after 10 years of silence. I even started journaling, not to document what had happened, but to figure out why I'd let it go on for so long. Turns out, when you grow up in a family where love is measured by how useful you are, you start confusing burnout with purpose. And as I peeled those layers back, I found something I didn't expect: space. Not just physical space from the chaos, but emotional room to breathe. To be a dad without resentment. A husband without distraction. A man who didn't need validation from people who'd never learned how to give it without strings attached. It was around that time I started reconnecting with people I hadn't talked to in years. Old friends. Colleagues I'd lost touch with. One of them, a former coworker named Luis, mentioned a business opportunity over dinner. We're looking for someone who understands real estate finance from the ground up, he said. And someone who's tired of working for other people's empires. I laughed. That sounds a little too on the nose. But we kept talking. And by the end of the month, I was consulting for his startup full-time. Less hours, more flexibility, better pay. For the first time in years, I had autonomy. Not just at work, but in life. I didn't tell my family. I didn't post about it. I didn't make any grand announcement. Because I didn't need to. That was the rise. Quiet. Steady. Real. Of course, Natalie couldn't let that go on for too long without trying to stage another scene. It started with a mutual cousin's wedding. We weren't planning to go, but Owen and Caleb were asked to be ring bearers, and they were excited. Emily and I agreed, just for the ceremony and maybe a short while at the reception. What we didn't expect was Natalie giving a toast. Halfway through the night, glass in hand and smile weaponized, she clinked her fork and stood up. Weddings are a time for family, she said sweetly. Even when that family doesn't always agree. I froze in my seat. Emily tensed beside me. And even when certain members choose to isolate themselves, it's important to remember that love should be unconditional. That no matter what's happened, we open our doors to forgiveness. Polite applause followed. The couple smiled awkwardly. I stared at the tablecloth, trying to ground myself. She wasn't done. Some of us have had to learn the hard way what it means to show up for people. And I just hope that one day, certain people realize that money doesn't equal love. That presence is more powerful than bank transfers. And with that, she raised her glass. To healing. I didn't stand. I didn't clap. But something inside me settled. Because I realized she wasn't rising. She was clawing. Desperate to be seen as more than a filter and a facade. And I was no longer the man who needed her approval or their version of love. But that night, as we left the wedding, I got a call that changed everything again. It wasn't from Natalie. It was from the bank. The call came just after 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the garage again, this time tuning my guitar with a cold beer and the kind of calm that only comes when the house is quiet and the kids are finally in bed. My phone lit up, and I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar. Probably spam, I thought. But something in me, some quiet instinct, said pick up. Mr. Whitman? The voice asked. Yes, speaking. This is Rebecca Mayfield from Gresham & Company. Real Estate Holdings. You're listed as the silent administrator on the shared title trust for 28 Hillcrest Drive. I'm calling to confirm if you're still relinquishing your administrative override for final sale disbursement. I sat up, heartbeat suddenly sharp in my chest. Wait, what? Final sale disbursement? Yes, sir. The property closed last week, but there's a pending hold on funds until all parties approve the equity distribution. You're still listed as the override trustee for the protective lien filed in 2021. Standard clause on file. I blinked. Slowly. Can you clarify what that means? There was a pause, like she was reading from a screen. Back in 2021, you filed a financial protection clause with the county, attached to the mortgage account and property deed. That clause placed a silent lien on the property equivalent to the full amount of your direct payments toward the loan, in the event the house was sold before full repayment. I remembered now. The clause had been legal advice from a lawyer friend when I first stepped in to help my parents with the mortgage. Just in case, he'd said. A fallback. Not to enforce, but to protect. I'd signed the paperwork, filed it quietly, and never thought about it again. Until now. You're saying I'm still on the deed? Not as an owner. But you do have an enforceable financial claim. Which means, until you approve the disbursement, the proceeds from the sale are frozen. I let out a low breath. How much are we talking? $312, $800 in equity, she said. And your protective lien entitles you to, let me see, $186,000 of that. My first instinct was disbelief. My second was something deeper, something steady and powerful, clarity. They didn't know. They didn't know the lien had teeth. They didn't know the bank still had my name on the administrative clause. They didn't know I could stop the entire transaction with a single signature. Natalie, in her rush to play savior, must have pushed our parents to sell the house without reading the fine print. She wanted a show, a redemption arc, but she didn't read the credits. I ended the call with a polite thank you and sat there, holding the phone, letting the weight of what I'd just learned settle. I could stop them. I could freeze every cent. I could make her feel it. But something in me, maybe the wiser part, knew that a frontal attack wouldn't cut it. Natalie would twist it, turn it into another sob story. Arthur's trying to take everything from us. She'd spin it like I was heartless, greedy, bitter. No, I needed to be smart, strategic, surgical. So I called Emily. She was folding laundry upstairs when I walked in, quieter than usual. You okay? She asked, looking up. I nodded. I just got off the phone with Gresham. The house sale? It's not finished. She paused, setting a folded shirt aside. What do you mean? I'm still on the lien, and I can freeze the funds. Her eyes widened. All of it. $186,000 of it. Her mouth opened in disbelief, then slowly curved into a tight smile. Does Natalie know? Nope. And I'm not going to tell her. Emily raised an eyebrow. So what's the plan? That was the question, wasn't it? I didn't want to go nuclear. Not yet. But I did want the truth to come out. Not from my mouth, but from the consequences of their own actions. I wanted them to feel the quiet panic of unraveling control. To see the ground shift and not know why. And more than that, I wanted everyone else to see it, too. Because the smear campaign hadn't stopped. Natalie had kept dropping breadcrumbs on social media. Tough love is still love. Sometimes you have to cut out toxicity to protect your peace. She was the hero in her mind. She was rallying people behind her, building this illusion that she had rescued our parents from me. So I started planning. Step 1 was to let the sale sit. Not approve it. Just let it hang. Every day the money sat frozen would be a day Natalie got more confused, more frustrated. I wanted her calling banks, asking questions, digging. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I wanted the truth to reveal itself. Step 2 was research. I reached out to a contact I had in property law, a guy I'd helped years ago during a loan restructuring. I asked him to pull up the full sale documentation, which he did happily. And that's when I got a new surprise. Natalie hadn't just convinced them to sell. She'd listed herself as a financial beneficiary. In the sale contract, it showed that she would receive 15% of the proceeds in exchange for managing the transition, relocation, and homestaging. She paid herself. She profited off the sale of a house she never paid for, staged with money she didn't earn, using a mortgage I had covered for years. It was all legal, but it was disgusting. And it gave me exactly what I needed. Because here's the thing. When someone has convinced everyone they're the selfless one, the martyr, the perfect daughter, you don't need to expose them with fireworks. You just need to let the receipts speak for themselves. And I had plenty of receipts. But I needed a setting. A moment. Somewhere the truth could land hard and clean. That's when I remembered Thanksgiving. It was a month away. My parents had already sent a group email. Let's come together this year. Life is too short. Natalie responded with a clapping emoji and a message about starting fresh. Of course she did. Normally, we hosted Thanksgiving at our house. But this year, they were hosting it at Natalie's newly renovated place. I turned to Emily and said, "We're going." She blinked. "Seriously?" "Yeah," I said, slowly smiling. "But we're not going empty-handed." Because I was done being quiet. Done being the shadow holding everything together. It was time to prepare. I started gathering paperwork. Every receipt from the mortgage payments. The lien clause. The emails from the bank. The updated sale documents with her self-appointed payout. I organized it all into a clean folder. Nothing dramatic. Just neat, factual, undeniable truth. I even printed out the original message Natalie sent me. Your kids get too much attention anyway. In case anyone wanted a reminder of what had really started this all. Then I reached out to Luis, my business partner. I told him about everything, not for pity, but because I wanted advice. He listened, then said something I'll never forget. "You're holding a mirror," he said. "Don't smash them with it. Just let them look." So I waited. Let the fun stay frozen. Let the tension build. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Natalie texted me. "Hey, random question. Do you know anything about why the house funds are taking so long?" I replied, "Yep. Is there something wrong? Mom and Dad are freaking out. The agent said something about a lien." I waited a few minutes, then responded, "I'm sure it'll clear up. Let's talk at Thanksgiving." She didn't reply, but I knew she'd be spiraling. And I knew that when we walked into that house, me, Emily, and the boys, we'd be walking into the final act. I just had to let it play out. What none of them knew was that the folder I'd be bringing wasn't the revenge. It was the mirror. And when I placed it on that table, they wouldn't be looking at me. They'd be staring straight at themselves. Thanksgiving arrived like a storm cloud resting gently on a white linen tablecloth. Emily and I dressed casually but sharp. I wore a dark green button-up and jeans. Clean shave, confident face. Not the version of Arthur they remembered. Tired, obliging, quietly folding under the weight of obligation. This Arthur walked tall. This Arthur knew what he carried in his folder. What he'd earned. The boys, Owen and Caleb, wore matching navy cardigans and khakis. They were more excited about pie than anything else, completely unaware that their father was walking into a battlefield where the main course wasn't turkey. It was truth. Natalie's house was absurd, as usual. Pumpkin-scented candles flickered in every corner. The entryway was decorated like a Pinterest post titled Harvest Elegance. Hand-lettered signs, gold-rimmed plates, eucalyptus garlands. I half expected a ring light to descend from the ceiling for posed family photos. Natalie greeted us with a tight smile. She looked exhausted but perfectly made up, like someone playing the role of a grateful host in a stage production. Behind her, my parents stood stiffly in the kitchen. My mother avoided eye contact. My father looked like he hadn't slept in days. We made small talk, went through the motions. The boys ran off to the living room where the cousins were already playing Mario Kart. Emily and I sat at the edge of the long dining table, waiting. I didn't plan to make a scene. That was never the point. The goal was for the truth to land softly, like snowfall, quiet, inevitable, cold enough to make them feel it. Dinner started with forced gratitude. Natalie stood to make her traditional speech, because of course she did. "This year has been full of transitions," she said, clasping her hands. "We've faced some tough moments, but through it all, I believe we've grown stronger as a family. I'm thankful for grace, for resilience, and for the ability to forgive." Emily's fingers tightened around her wine glass. Natalie looked directly at me. "Some of us have had to learn hard lessons, but I believe in moving forward. Together." I smiled. "Calm. Well said." She blinked. The performance wasn't landing quite the way she wanted. She moved on, carving the turkey while our mother passed around sides like we were in Norman Rockwell painting. But no one was really eating. And when the pie was served, I stood up. "Before we all go our separate ways tonight," I said, voice steady, "I just wanted to clear up a small misunderstanding." The room went still. Natalie paused mid-sip of cider. My mother looked up, eyes wary. My dad set down his fork like it suddenly weighed more than he could lift. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. Simple. Black. No embellishments. "I've been getting calls from the bank," I said. "About the house sale." Natalie straightened. "Oh yeah? I meant to talk to you about that. There was some weird mix-up with the—" "It's not a mix-up," I said. Calm. Measured. "I filed a protective lien on the property in 2021. After paying off over $180,000 in mortgage debt on Mom and Dad's behalf." Silence. Dead, stifling silence. Natalie opened her mouth, but I continued. "This lien legally entitled me to review and approve any sale disbursement before the funds could be released, which I haven't done yet." My father's jaw clenched. My mother finally looked at me. "You paid that much?" she whispered. I nodded. "Every month. For 3 years. Quietly. Without asking for credit. I didn't even tell you because I thought I was helping." I opened the folder and slid out the documents. Payment records, legal filings, screenshots of transfers. But now the house is gone. Sold. And I found out, Natalie, that you arranged to pay yourself 15% of the sale, around $46,000, for managing the move, even though you didn't contribute a cent to the mortgage. Not one. Natalie's face drained of color. "It was for staging. I covered all the—" "I have receipts showing the staging company was paid directly from Mom and Dad's account." I cut in. "And you claimed that money for yourself anyway." I turned to my parents. "You let her sell the house I kept afloat. And you never even asked why it hadn't gone into foreclosure. You never asked how the payments were made. You just assumed some miracle program saved you." That was me. It was always me. My mother put her hand to her mouth. My father looked like he'd been punched. Natalie finally snapped. "This is revenge. You're just mad that I'm the one who helped them move on. You didn't want the responsibility anymore, and now you're punishing us for not worshiping you." I tilted my head slightly. "No," I said. "This isn't punishment. This is a boundary, and it's long overdue." I looked at my mom, then my dad. "I love that house. I spent more time fixing it than I ever did inside it. But when you sold it, when you let her do it without even calling me, that was your choice. And choices have consequences." I looked at Natalie. "As for the money, you're not getting it." Her eyes went wide. "You can't do that." "I can. And I am. The lien stands. The bank needs my approval. And until I see a corrected distribution that reflects repayment of what I covered, every cent, the funds stay frozen." "You're destroying this family," she hissed. "No," I said, standing straighter. "I'm just no longer financing the fantasy." Then I turned to the boys and called them over. They came running, pie in hand. "Time to go," I said, smiling at them. Emily stood beside me, calm and steady as ever. As we left, no one spoke. The only sound was the quiet shuffle of paper as I slid the folder back into my bag. The next day, I received a call from the bank's legal department. Apparently, Natalie had tried to contest the lien. She failed. A week later, I got an email from my father. It wasn't long. It wasn't even an apology. It just said, "We didn't know, but we do now." That was enough for me. Natalie never messaged again. The money? I approved the disbursement, but only after the corrected terms were submitted. My share repaid first, in full. Her fee, removed entirely. She got nothing. My parents now rent a small 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet suburb. It's modest, but manageable, and they pay their own rent. As for me, I still don't get Thanksgiving invites or Christmas cards. And you know what? I sleep better than I ever have. Because there's nothing more freeing than walking away from people who only loved what you gave, not who you were. And as for Natalie, well, she still posts her perfect life online. But now, no one's buying it. Not even her.